The documentary chronicles the extraordinary life and athletic career of Jim Thorpe, a Sac and Fox and Potawatomi athlete widely regarded as one of the greatest ever, whose accomplishments were shadowed by racial injustice. Born in poverty in Oklahoma on the Sac and Fox Reservation, he was given the name W.A. the Hook, meaning bright path or path lit by lightning, foreshadowing his world-shocking career. His childhood on the open plains fostered a natural athleticism as he spent his time running, jumping, and chasing wild animals, a form of natural cross-training. Thorpe grew up during a period of relentless U.S. westward expansion and anti-indigenous policies like the Dawes Act, also known as the Allotment Act, which sought to dissolve tribal land holdings and enforce assimilation. This led to events like the Oklahoma land runs, where white settlers overran what had been native reservations, exposing young Jim to the violent upheaval and theft of native land. Furthermore, the Dawes Act sought to forcibly remove native children from their homes and culture by sending them to Indian boarding schools with the explicit motto, "Kill the Indian, save the man." Jim Thorpe was sent to 3 different boarding schools, eventually arriving at the flagship Carlisle Indian Industrial School in Pennsylvania. Initially short and slight, he was reluctant to pursue the classroom routine, even running away from the Sac and Fox boarding school twice. After a period working as a farmhand where he grew physically by laboring and breaking wild horses, work that mirrored the brutal physical nature of early American football, he returned to Carlisle primed for his athletic career. The origin story of Jim Thorpe the athlete began when he, in his overalls, casually walked onto a track field, saw the high jump, and without any training easily cleared the bar to set a new school record. This immediately caught the attention of the school's track and football coach, Pop Warner, a brilliant and innovative mind considered the father of American football through his development of the single and double wing offenses, tackling dummies, and trick plays. Though Jim wanted to play football, Warner was hesitant due to the sport's violence, but Jim's persistence won him a chance. During a tackling drill meant to intimidate him, Thorpe's raw elusive talent was instantly apparent, and the birth of Thorpe the football player was solidified. Football at the turn of the 20th century was a violent collision sport, often referred to as a form of warfare, notorious for the flying wedge tactic and leading to numerous deaths and injuries, nearly causing President Theodore Roosevelt to abolish it. Thorpe thrived in this environment. In October 1907, during a game against the University of Pennsylvania, Thorpe was initially thrown for a loss but rebounded with a 70-yard touchdown run, securing his spot on the team. Jim Thorpe's career reached a new high in 1912 when the Carlisle Indians, a symbol of native perseverance, were scheduled to play the undefeated powerhouse Harvard Crimson Tide. Despite a significant leg injury which led to the press calling him Crippled Jimmy Thorpe, he played every minute of the offense and defense, showcasing incredible stamina in an era with no substitutions. Thorpe personally scored all of Carlisle's points, including 2 field goals in the first half and 2 more in the second, leading to an unthinkable upset victory of 18-15. The famous headline, "Thorpe beat Harvard," cemented him as a national phenomenon. His performance was so dominant that Sports Illustrated later suggested it would have earned him the Heisman Trophy had it existed. That season, Thorpe scored 25 touchdowns and 198 points, an unmatched record at the time, earning him a spot on Walter Camp's All-American list. With his football star soaring, Jim Thorpe then set his sights on the 1912 Stockholm Olympics, the magic year of the Olympiad. The modern Olympic Games, revived by Baron Pierre de Coubertin, promoted the ideal of amateurism, that athletes should compete purely for passion, not for money, an ideal infused with classist and elitist biases to exclude working class and non-aristocratic competitors. The film sets the stage for the next chapter of Thorpe's career, focusing on his Olympic ambition and the rigid amateur rules that would soon impact him. Jim Thorpe's incredible athletic journey continued as he prepared for the 1912 Stockholm Olympics, an event governed by a strict classist definition of amateurism, a pledge that no athlete had ever received money for playing sports. This rule was designed by and for wealthy aristocratic athletes who did not need payment. On the voyage to Sweden aboard the SS Finland, Thorpe and another non-white American athlete, Abel Kvyat, who was Jewish, were subjected to the era's segregated culture, forced to stay in steerage rather than the better accommodations. Media narratives around Thorpe also began to paint him as merely a natural talent who didn't have to work, a stereotype used at the time to dehumanize and disparage minority athletes by stripping their achievements of diligence and hard work. Despite the challenges and underestimation, Thorpe excelled. He competed in both the pentathlon and the decathlon, 2 of the most difficult events. In the pentathlon, he immediately dominated, finishing first in the long jump, 200-meter dash and discus, and third in the javelin. Crucially, he won 4 out of the 5 events and finished 5 seconds ahead in the 1500-meter run, an absolutely unheard of achievement. He outclassed contenders, including his American teammate and future lifelong nemesis Avery Brundage, who failed to win a medal. Brundage, later known for his racist beliefs and as a powerful Olympic broker, became intensely aware of the Native American athlete who had bested him. Thorpe then moved on to the 10-event decathlon. On the second day, a potential act of sabotage occurred. Thorpe's specially made running shoes went missing. Suspecting Brundage's involvement, Thorpe was forced to find 2 mismatched sneakers in the trash, wearing 2 pairs of heavy socks on one foot. Despite the handicap, he cleared over 6 feet in the high jump, the only athlete to do so, and even performed a war dance for the crowd, a public declaration of his native identity that the assimilation-driven boarding schools had tried to strip from him. Avery Brundage, in a distant 12th place, ultimately dropped out of the competition after 8 events, unable to defeat Thorpe. This failure likely fueled the jealousy and animosity he would hold for the rest of his life. Thorpe went on to win the 1,500-meter race, sealing his victory in the decathlon. He finished in the top 3 in 8 of the 10 events, a staggering record that cemented him as one of the premier athletes in the world. King Gustav V of Sweden personally presented Thorpe with 2 gold medals, the last made of pure gold, and 2 ceremonial trophies telling him, "Sir, you are the greatest athlete in the world." Thorpe returned to the U.S. as a massive international celebrity, receiving a ticker tape parade in New York and even a congratulatory letter from President Howard Taft. The irony was profound. Thorpe was hailed as the best type of American citizen at a time when Native Americans had not yet been granted U.S. citizenship. His final act of greatness in 1912 came in the highly symbolic football game against the Army team at West Point. Coach Pop Warner used the pre-game speech to inspire his native players, telling them they were playing against the sons of the men who had killed their ancestors, urging them to remember Wounded Knee. The heavily favored Army team, which included future generals like Dwight D. Eisenhower, was larger and taller. In a display of athletic revenge, Thorpe dominated the game. The Army players even conspired at halftime to injure him, with Eisenhower later acknowledging their goal was to knock Thorpe unconscious. Thorpe, however, avoided their hits, leading to the game's iconic moment, a 92-yard touchdown run where he twisted, turned, and repelled every Army defender. Carlisle won 27-6, a victory lauded by Damon Runyon and summarized by the West Point yearbook as the worst defeat we have had in years. However, the greatest year of any athlete's life was followed by an immediate catastrophe. In 1913, a journalist found out that Thorpe had played minor league baseball in the summers of 1909 and 1910 for minimal pay. While many non-aristocratic athletes of the era played under pseudonyms, leading to the minor leagues being called the Pocahontas League, Thorpe had played under his own name, Jim Thorpe, making him a technical professional and violating the Olympic amateur rule. Thorpe, urged by Pop Warner, who himself likely knew of the summer ball but escaped consequences, wrote a letter to the American Olympic Committee taking the blame and claiming he was merely an Indian schoolboy who didn't know any better. This betrayal by Warner and the Carlisle authorities, who effectively used Thorpe as a scapegoat, led to an immediate demand for his medals and trophies. Despite the rule that any challenge had to occur within 30 days of the games, the story broke 6 months later. Thorpe was stripped of his records. This act of enormous injustice was founded on hypocrisy, as many white athletes, including future President Eisenhower, also played summer ball under false names. The medals were given to the second and third place winners, though Sweden's Hugo Weislander famously refused his, stating it belonged to Thorpe. The removal of the medals, which stood for his identity and purity of performance, became one of the greatest injustices in sports history. Stripped of his Olympic medals due to the hypocrisy of amateurism rules, Jim Thorpe was immediately signed by the New York Giants baseball team in 1913. As the most famous athlete in the world, his value was his celebrity. The Giants needed him for a world tour to promote baseball, as he was the only American athlete the global audience knew. However, baseball didn't come naturally, and he struggled in the major leagues, hitting in the .200s and battling with Giants manager John McGraw, who, unlike Pop Warner, micromanaged him. Thorpe endured constant racially charged taunts from crowds such as dog soup and war whoops. His true success in professional sports came in football. In 1915, he joined the Canton Bulldogs in the nascent Ohio League, a loosely structured precursor to the NFL. He was offered an unprecedented $250 a game, about $7,000 today, a salary that shocked the public and is considered the birth moment of professional football. Thorpe was a dominant player and coach for the Bulldogs, leading them to 4 national championships in 5 years and encouraging other stars like Knute Rockne to play against him. His success was so central that when the league formalized in 1920 to become the National Football League, Thorpe was unanimously elected as its first president, lending his name to legitimize the sport. The Pro Football Hall of Fame is in Canton for this reason. Thorpe continued to play both professional baseball and football until 1928, earning him the title Iron Man of Sports. Despite his athletic excellence, he led the National League in hitting for part of 1919, with the Boston Braves hitting a career-best .327. He was rarely home, which contributed to the breakdown of his first marriage. As his career declined in the late 1920s, the bonanza of big-money sports endorsements came too late for him. In the 1930s, struggling financially during the Depression, the man once hailed by royalty was photographed digging ditches for $4 a day, an event that became a national symbol of the fallen hero. This exposure, however, helped him find work in Hollywood, where he appeared in dozens of films, including King Kong and Captain Blood, mostly in generic non-speaking Native American roles. He used his celebrity to advocate for fellow Native actors, earning him the Sac and Fox term of respect, a Painada, or caretaker. Throughout the later years of his life, Thorpe tirelessly petitioned to have his Olympic medals restored, which he considered the defining injustice of his life, but he was repeatedly rejected. After his death in 1953, the public outcry for his vindication turned him into a folk hero. The decades-long campaign was consistently thwarted by his old nemesis Avery Brundage, who had risen to become president of the International Olympic Committee and blocked the reinstatement. Justice finally prevailed years after Brundage retired. In 1983, the IOC restored his medals, though initially listing him as a co-winner with the second-place finishers. It took until 2022, nearly 110 years after the events, for Thorpe to be fully reinstated as the sole winner of the pentathlon and decathlon. Jim Thorpe, posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, is celebrated today not just as the greatest athlete of all time, but as a symbol of the perseverance of Native peoples. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.